That's me, that's the richest man in the world, and that's the burger I just made him. But there's a catch. The patty in that burger is made from this stuff. And the reason I can eat it raw is it's made entirely from plants. As you guys know, every year I dedicate one of my 12 videos to showcase how clever people are using science and technology to change the world for the better. So for example, 2 years ago was a paper centrifusion microscope that could diagnose malaria for 51 cents versus $10,000 for traditional equipment. And then last year was a magical powder that helps poorer countries turn contaminated muddy water into clear drinking water. That's also when I first met Bill, and he earned my forever respect after I microwaved up some pizza rolls for him and he ate them like a champ. I've been loosely following the progress of plant-based meat for a couple years now, and allegedly it looks and tastes like meat, yet it's made from plants. Now, at the top of this video, I feel like I should start with a confession. I eat meat, like, kind of a lot. I've had some form of meat at pretty much every meal since I was a kid. My favorite genre of food is barbecue. And so be that as it may, as a firm believer in the scientific method, I feel like it's time for me just to really buckle down and get to the bottom of this plant-based meat thing. And so today on my quest for answers, I'm looking at 3 main questions. Number 1, how does it taste? And not just that, but how does it look and feel and smell? How successfully does it trick my brain into thinking this is real meat? Number 2, is it good for me? If it does trick my brain, what the heck is in it? Is it just some kind of like lab chemical concoction? And also, how does it compare to like the protein from a real burger? And number 3, is it good for the planet? And on this one, I have a hunch that it is, but is it like, meh, that's a little better? Or is it like 100 times better? Now I should say a big motivation for me, and something I think even my fellow meat eaters could agree on, is that the concept of factory farms isn't great. The whole cows that have never seen a blade of grass thing, and pigs, which by most accounts are smarter than dogs, that live their entire lives indoors on crowded concrete. These factories are efficient. They're optimized for driving down costs, not for animal well-being. And I'm not trying to be a downer, it's just something I don't like to think about when I'm eating my In-N-Out burger or Chick-fil-A. And it's a lame excuse, but I feel like I sort of never have had a good alternative option. I mean, historically, this is a veggie burger, and nothing about this works as a burger for me. But in recent years, the strategy shifted to target people exactly like me. Basically try and make it as close to real meat as possible, which reduces friction for trying a plant-based option. So their goal is, if I'm going meatless at the summer barbecue, instead of a quinoa salad, I can still enjoy the full experience of a burger with my friends. And so on that note, let's get right into question number 1. Throw this puppy on the grill. Sizzle. Definitely sounds like a burger and even smells like it. And you're getting like the fat dripping down, which is causing the flames to come up. So far the experience feels pretty analogous to just grilling a burger. When I lick the fork, it definitely tastes like there was meat on this fork. All right, this cuts and feels exactly like a real burger. But before I officially taste it, I kind of want to know exactly what's in there. And to do that, I'm going to fly out to the 2 companies who are the leader in this space, Beyond Meat and Impossible Foods. At Beyond Meat, the first thing they showed me were the labs where they do all their research. Are these actors or these are real scientists?
These are scientists, yeah.
This feels like Jurassic Park, you know, where they're like giving you the tour and you have... And right out of the gate, they put my mind at ease and showed me a tray of all the main stuff that makes up their burgers. Apparently they work on not just the taste, but they have teams of researchers working on the texture, color, the smell, the grilling sound, even the same amount of calories and protein as a meat burger. Their goal is to make it as frictionless as possible for people like me to make the switch. So they have these for the color, coconut and sunflower oil for the fat so it sizzles on the grill, potatoes for carbohydrates, and then these for the protein, the majority coming from yellow peas. These burgers are better for you because they have no cholesterol, but they do have saturated fat from the coconut oil, so you shouldn't think of this as healthy as like a plain salad with no dressing. After getting the full tour, I was feeling pretty good, so it was time for the real test in the kitchen. I've intentionally kept my taste buds virgin.
Okay, great.
I haven't tasted it, and I had opportunities, but like, no, I want to wait. No pressure. But next week, I'm going to meet Bill Gates.
Yeah.
And I have to cook for him. You're like a professional chef, right?
I am.
In the next like 20 minutes, you need to transfer all that knowledge from your brain into mine, okay? We started with their Italian sausage, made of course just from plants, and Chef Chris showed me some power moves to impress Bill with on the grill. I'm so scared.
Cheers.
Okay, cheers. Even putting flavor aside,
I think Bill will be okay with a little bit of a juice.
There's no way I would have guessed I wasn't actually eating real meat. That's pretty good.
Cheers.
Cheers. That's really good. I need one more taste. It's freaking good.
Thank you.
Next up was their burger. which it turns out was equally amazing. Genuinely, when you surround it with burger stuff, it's really hard to tell.
There's no way to tell.
My next trip was to Impossible Foods, and they actually let me make a burger myself just from the ingredients in these bowls.
So the first thing that we're gonna do is add the water to the soy protein, and then we're gonna add the potato protein.
Okay.
So the next thing we're gonna put in is our magic ingredient, which, do you know what this is?
Red number 5 is just food.
So this is our magic ingredient. It's called heme, which is short for hemoglobin. Heme is responsible for making meat taste like meat. That's found in every living plant and animal. You can get heme from soy plants.
I see.
You don't have to get it from animals.
Next, we added the cellulose-based culinary binder to hold everything together, and then finally, the coconut and sunflower oils.
Have you done any pastry work in your life?
Oh, tons of
Okay,
pastry.
you're gonna like fold and smush.
All my pastry work's shining through.
You literally just made the Impossible Burger yourself.
Like 5 little cups.
Five bowls, yeah.
One of them was water.
One of them was water.
So now I think it's time to cook one of these up.
96% of the folks who are ordering our product are self-identified meat eaters.
I'm definitely your target demo. I grew up, like, if the meal didn't have meat in it, it wasn't a meal.
When it delivers in that same characteristic that meat does, it really proves the point that we're providing a no-compromises alternative for those meat eaters out there to make a different choice.
This raised an interesting point. Meat has been cleverly marketed with being a real man because real men need their protein.
That's what a man eats. Made from stuff guys need. Eat like a man.
But the truth is, even meat eaters like me get roughly half their protein a day from plants by eating things that contain some kind of beans, peas, nuts, or whole grains like corn, rice, and oats. In fact, many high-performance athletes are switching to a plant-based diet because studies have shown it can help reduce measures of inflammation by almost 30% in just 3 weeks, and inflammation makes it harder to recover after a workout. So if a plant-based diet is good enough for Arnold Schwarzenegger, Kyrie Irving, Lewis Hamilton, Venus and Serena Williams, Nate Diaz, and a growing butt ton of others, it's probably good enough for me and my weekly rec league soccer game.
Ballin' like Curry.
You can ultimately utilize this in any way you would use traditional ground beef.
So tacos, lasagna, meatballs.
Name it.
They're so good. This is a plant-based burger, and look at the mess I'm making. So obviously, I thought their burgers were also really good, but I felt like I wanted a larger sample size before I felt truly confident feeding Bill. So I invited some friends to a local restaurant that serves Impossible Burgers. And the thing is, you can't always trust adults because they might just change their answer to be nice.
It's really good.
Kids, on the other hand, are brutally honest. So we ordered them plant-based burgers too,
Do you like it?
but might have neglected to mention it to them beforehand.
What do you think?
It's really good.
There's no meat in that burger.
Wait, what? You're lying.
Plants. That was a plant burger. You ate a plant burger.
This, instead of meat, it was vegetables. It just tastes like extra juicy.
And so, feeling more confident than ever, it was time to visit Bill, put my culinary skills to the test, and see if he could help me answer my final question. So I'm back in Bill's kitchen. He's gonna be here in an hour, and I need some groceries. Bill, it's good to see you again. So I've been working hard in your kitchen.
Perfect.
And I kind of wanted to talk to you about plant-based meat, and I thought maybe we could try them out as well.
Sure.
But as a control, I know you're a big fan of Dick's Burgers. So to kind of cleanse the palate, I thought we could just take a bite.
That's the real thing.
The real thing. As a non-Seattle native, I've got to say, I think this may be an acquired taste.
Yeah, you get used to a certain burger.
You get used to. And so now it's time for my cooking. What do you think?
It's quite good. I mean, that's light years away from what they used to make.
Like the traditional veggie burger?
Right. You know, the quality's going to keep getting better. The plant-based guys are not done innovating. Eventually, they claim you won't be able to tell the difference.
Next up was my killer bratwurst.
Wow, well, that's pretty good.
And at this point in my quest, I felt like I had a pretty good lock on questions 1 and 2. So I asked him about number 3.
The agriculture sector is about 18% of overall emissions, but livestock is about half of that, 18%.
Wow.
And almost all of that is beef.
Is this like cow farts, cow burps?
Slightly more burps than farts, but it's a mix of those two.
To put that into perspective, that means that sector alone is responsible for more greenhouse gases than all the cars, trucks, trains, ships, and planes combined. Turns out, it takes a lot of stuff to make a cow.
Very inefficient, particularly beef, is almost 8 to 1. You use 8 calories to feed that cow for every calorie of meat you get out, because you're building bone and respiration for that cow.
Now this was a really good point I hadn't fully considered. If you think about it, as humans, we're really solar powered. We eat plants, but they get their energy from the sun. Then you might be like, we also eat animals though. But they get their energy from plants too, which again, get their energy from the sun. So when it comes to getting our energy from the sun, animals are an inefficient middleman. We get on average 10% of our calories or energy in a day from meat. That might sound reasonable until you look at the amount of resources it takes to make that meat compared to the other 90%. If you combined all the land in the US dedicated to raising animals, you would get an area like this. And then plus this much more to grow the crops needed to feed those animals. Now remember, all of that is for the middleman, for 10% of our daily energy. Now compare that to the amount of land needed for crops we actually eat ourselves directly. That relatively small chunk of land is where the overwhelming majority of our personal energy comes from. And it's not just land resources, but water as well. To end up with 24 hamburger patties, it requires the amount of water you see in this pool. That same amount of water could make 75 loaves of whole grain bread and 30 jars of peanut butter. So if I made myself a delicious peanut butter sandwich, which has nearly the identical amounts of both calories and proteins compared to this patty, and then I ate 2 a day, the meat would last me a little over a week, and the sandwiches would last me a little over a year. So that's the same amount of resources used, same amount of calories and protein to me per serving. One just lasted me a year longer because it's a much more efficient energy transfer method. This is why a plant-based diet is a way more efficient use of natural resources. We could feed an additional 3.5 billion people worldwide if all countries just ate the stuff they fed to animals. And here's why that fact matters.
Particularly as people get richer, they tend to eat more meat. If we don't do anything, this sector will actually grow over time.
So you're saying not just the fact that there's more people and a larger population, but as people move up towards the middle class, they want to consume more meat. And you can certainly see that this is true when you look at the amount of meat consumed over the past 50 years. Given the resources required, a trajectory for meat consumption like this is simply unsustainable. A few decades ago, meat was considered a luxury product, but now it's a commodity for a growing number of people. In fact, the demand is growing so much, it now makes sense for farmers in the Amazon just to burn it down and to turn that forest into grazing land for animals. We've irreversibly lost 20% of the Amazon so far. And that's a double gut punch, because now not only is that more cow farts adding to climate change, but when you burn those trees, all the carbon stored inside them goes back into the atmosphere as the greenhouse gas CO2.
One of the great tragedies about climate is that it's the poorest in the world, the farmers who live fairly near to the equator, that all this heat and flooding and droughts, they're going to suffer by far the most. If you're just trying to get people to cut back, don't eat meat, don't drive to work, don't take trips, it's such a dramatic set of sacrifices that everybody has to engage in that without innovation, we're probably going to go way past the 2 degrees.
And that last part is the silver lining. Plant-based meat is the exact kind of innovation Bill's referring to here. And I'm optimistic because as the demand for plant-based meats goes up, the price will come down, much lower than actual meat. So then not only will the experience be identical to eating meat, but it's better for you, better for animals, and much better for the planet. Oh, and it also costs half as much. It just becomes a really easy decision for people to switch in massive numbers. All right, so what does this all mean? Now that I've completed my quest for answers, where do I stand? And I'll say it still makes me really uncomfortable to think about these factory farms or the Amazon being burned down to make room for more cows, but at the same time, I can't really blame these poor remote farmers who know nothing about what a greenhouse gas is for just trying to feed their family. As long as the demand for meat continues to grow, there will be an incentive to be not cool to our mutual friend, Mother Earth. So the most effective thing we can do is try and reduce that demand. So after all this, I'm not a vegan. I'm not even strictly on a plant-based diet, but I have reduced the amount of meat I consume by more than half, and I feel great. Importantly, I broke it from that weird mindset that for it to be considered a true meal, it has to have some form of meat. So if any part of this video rang true to you, I would say don't take my word for it. Try it for yourself. You can find plant-based meat options in thousands of restaurants and even at Burger King and Carl's Jr. Most grocery stores have a whole section dedicated to them, so you can substitute it into your favorite home-cooked meal. And remember, it doesn't have to be binary, like you either eat no meat or you're frickin' Ron Swanson. If a bunch of people did Meatless Monday, for example, that would have a huge impact on demand. Some of the challenges we face globally can feel pretty daunting, and so I love seeing clever people innovating on the front lines, trying to make it as easy as possible for the rest of us to make the right choices. It gives me hope about our future here together and inspires me to want to do my part. I want to thank Bill and Melinda Gates for partnering with me on this video. They just released the brand new Gates annual letter, and I will leave a link to it in the video description. In it, they talk about the big risks they've taken in education and global health over the last 2 decades of their foundation, and why for the next 2 decades they'll continue making big bets, only this time in gender equality and climate. And Bill's major focus on climate change involves both mitigation and adaptation to keep making progress toward making our planet a better place to live. In fact, I will close with a bit of a teaser from the man himself.
You know, I actually thought of all the toughest climate problems that livestock was going to be the toughest. Now with these companies and other ones coming along in this space, I'd say steel and cement are now the two that I'm still scratching my head.
Well, if anyone's going to be scratching their head to solve the problem, I think humanity is grateful. Bill Gates is the one doing it. So on behalf of, I don't know, the world, we appreciate the efforts you're making in this. I have some celebratory pizza rolls. Last year I made you, actually they're frozen, you don't want
Thank you.
It's just a prop, I'll spare you.
You tricked me, Marco Rolo!